everybody for taking an interest in what's going on with our water system and what we've endured over the weekend, and want to thank you for reaching out to us today and wanting to take part in it and updating your viewers and listeners and readers. And I just hope we can always have a good open line of communications. I think that's very important for our city government, and whenever y'all need something from us, I hope we're accessible and available to you, because we really appreciate all the help you all gave us over the weekend in getting the word out to conserve water, which really helped. We would have run out of water had the citizens not taken seriously the request that they conserve water. So I want to start off by reading the press release that was just issued, which kind of gives the background and the updated information on where we were and where we've come to now, and then I'll be glad to take any questions at that time. So on Saturday, April 2nd, 2016, at approximately 2 p.m., the 16-inch water line ruptured that brings raw water from the reservoir to the water treatment plant. It appears that recent heavy rains caused a washout along an earthen bank that caused the water line to break. Temporary repairs to the line have been made, and water has been flowing to the water treatment facility since approximately 2 p.m. on Sunday, April 3rd. It will take the system a couple of days to get back to full capacity, as we were very close to running out of treated water on Sunday before the repair was completed. Temporary work will continue this week to shore up the water line and creek bank until the permanent repairs can be approved and completed. We appreciate the cooperation of all City of Forsyth water consumers with the request to strictly conserve water, and we are asking citizens and businesses to continue to conserve water to allow the system to return to full capacity. Strict conservation means no outdoor water use, to include washing cars or watering gardens. Limiting laundry, bathing, and cooking should be kept to a minimum as well. Please, no outdoor burning during this time either, as that would cause a strain on our fire suppression efforts. We understand that not all businesses could completely close down during this time, but want to mention those that we are aware of that did close their businesses to allow for conservation of the treated water that we did have. Those were Purdue Feed Mill and Hatchery, Georgia Public Safety Training Center, and the Department of Corrections, and Magic Touch Car Wash. We truly appreciate their sacrifices of closing their businesses during this critical time. There were far too many to mention that strictly adhered to our request to conserve, and we want to express our thanks to those businesses as well as the individual citizens and consumers on our water system. We were able to supply water to the City of Forsyth customers for approximately 24 hours without being able to treat any water. This is due in large part to the conservation efforts of everyone, in addition to the hard work of utility partners, which is our water service provider, and John R. Walker Company, the contractor who came in and made the repairs yesterday in repairing the water line. As of 11 this morning, we are at approximately 25% capacity in our tanks, and we are producing 1.5 million gallons of water a day to allow for maximum filter runtime rather than our full production of 3 million gallons per day. This lower production allows us to treat water for a longer period of time without pausing in that process. I will say, as most of you know, that yesterday we spent most of the day meeting. We had all of the key players, our business partners, and those in the community that are some of our larger water consumers, certainly the Georgia Public Safety Training Center, the Tiff College campus, the headquarters of the Department of Corrections, the Burris Correctional Facility, the Sheriff's Department, the hospital, and we were keeping these people up to date as new information was coming along. We had our first meeting with staff and with the interested parties at 7 p.m. on Saturday evening to make our first assessment of the situation. We recognized that we didn't have all of the data that we needed at that time, that we needed a little bit more information on repair time, and that wouldn't be available until the contractor was on site Saturday morning. They were on site very early at first light Saturday morning. At 9 a.m. we had our second meeting, and at that time we had a little bit more information, but we still we knew that we recognized that we had about 8 hours of water consumption left based on the trending usage at 9 o'clock yesterday morning. So I asked that those agencies that might be affected or their people might be affected to initiate their contingency plans at that time, and that meant the Public Safety Training Center had some 1,000 people coming in for training yesterday at 2 o'clock from all around the state. So we recognized that if we waited until later, it would be too late to stop them, so they went ahead and made the call to tell them not to come in yesterday. We really avoided a potential crisis. We were able to get the water running with only probably an hour or so left of water in the system. We were down to what water was in the standpipes. That means the pipe from the tank to the ground. No water in the tank, so that's what we had in the system. I think it's also important to note that there was never at any time did the pressure get low enough to constitute a boil water advisory, as happens when the water pressure gets low enough in the system. EPD requires us to report to them when it gets to 20 PSI or lower. We've never got below 70 PSI on the system, so we were able to keep the system charged and never had to get to that point. We did on Saturday night. The city manager, just a few hours after we recognized the potential of the situation, she did reach out to the EPD and advise them of the potential situation that we had on our hands. So we were in cooperation and in contact with them from very early on. The EMA Director, Matt Perry, was phenomenal in guiding us and helping us with resources that were needed as a contingency should we have run out of water. And all of our partners, Monroe County Emergency Services, were on hand to help us with water for fire suppression. So I think we had a very good contingency plan. We're just very thankful we never had to use it. We're very thankful that our partners, utility partners, and John R. Walker were able to get the water restored in time. And for the average citizen, other than having to conserve water, really saw no difference in water quality or anything like that. We are still asking, because it's going to take a couple more days, to get the water system fully recharged and get our elevated tanks back to the level that they need to be. So we're asking for our citizens to help us out and to continue to conserve water over the next couple of days. We're very appreciative, because had they not done that, we really would have run out of water. So we just want to put that message out there. And at this time, I'll open up for any questions you may have.
Can you go over some of the contingency plans that you were discussing?
Yes, through our emergency management agency, they were activating water to be brought in. Potable water was coming in for the citizens. We had the additional police personnel available to help us with distribution should we've gotten to the point that we were completely out of water. We were organizing a very orderly process to the distribution of that water. We were making sure that water was being supplied to the principal facilities. I mentioned the hospital, which has patients, of course, and it's not so easy just to move them all the time. So we were making sure that we had a contingency for them. And then the agencies, they have their own plans too. The Department of Corrections had water brought in for their inmates. They have a little over 800 inmates at the facility here, so they were making those moves. The Public Safety Training Center was shutting down what they needed to, and everybody was just pitching in. I think the sheriff's office, they shut off the water to the cell block for a limited time so that we could see what was going on with the situation, and we had a contingency that we could move some folks if we needed to make things work out.
You mean inmates to other facilities?
Sure, yeah.
Now, the jail released its employees early today. Do you have any idea why? Is that
not sure.
due to the water?
I'm not familiar.
Okay.
Yeah. I hadn't heard that. So.
By 4 or 5 tonight, what capacity will you be at? You said at 11 this morning you were at 25%.
That's a good question, and I wish I could give you a definitive answer, and the reason I can't is it fluctuates based on usage. Nobody was using water, and we were storing 1.5 million gallons we were processing a day. The tanks would be filled pretty quickly, but obviously businesses are operating. It's Monday, and people who didn't take a bath on Saturday or Sunday probably did this morning. And so we have to allow and understand that that's going to happen, and it's going to take a little while, and that's why we estimate a couple of days. So we're at about a quarter right now full on our elevated tanks. Just to give you an idea, we have 4 elevated tanks, and combined they hold about 1.3 million gallons. We're at about a quarter of that right now.
And if they were all full, how many days of water is that for the city?
That's a good question, and there again, it goes back to consumption,
Mm-hmm.
just rates and patterns, and you know, if we're under a full conservation effort like we are now, it probably lasts for a good little while. Without that, for example, we lasted 24 hours with what we had in the tanks. On Saturday, when we found out about the rupture in the line, so I don't know. It's hard for me to say. It depends on consumption. We lasted 24 hours because we really cut back on consumption.
Did that bring, as a city leader, did that bring into mind, like, maybe we should look at adding tanks in case something like this happens in the future, so there's more than just 8 hours left?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. You got a lot of good questions, and I'll be glad to address that. 2 or 3 years ago, the city of Forsyth entered into an agreement with Monroe County. Monroe County is not a water producer. We do produce and provide water for residents in the county too. So 7,400 or so residents or households receive water from us. Not all of those are in the city. But the county does supply water to its citizens, and some of it purchases from the Macon Water Authority on the south end and some from Butts County on the north end. 2 or 3 years ago, we entered into an agreement to buy water from Monroe County through the Macon Water Authority line coming in on the south end of the county. Since I've been mayor, within just the past few months, the city manager has brought to us and we've approved to go ahead and go forward with the contracts. So when that line is tied in, we would have the instant ability to turn the faucet, so to speak, and allow water to flow. We would have to purchase the water. It's not water that we're producing. It's treated water that we can immediately introduce into our system. The reason that we started working on this a couple of years ago is to provide the redundancy for such a thing as this. But I do want to point out that this particular line has been in place since somewhere around 1987, I'm told.
Mm-hmm.
We've never had any issues with it. We had a lot of heavy rain last week, and it caused a sloughing of the bank next to where the line is, taking the water pipe with it into the creek bed and causing it to rupture in that process. So this is not an expected thing. It's not something that is even at all routine, for sure. It's been there for several years and we've never had to deal with it. But to answer your question, we do have a contingency that we're working on.
When will that come online?
Respect. It depends on the contracts being let and then actually getting the work done. I don't know, probably be a few months after we actually have the contractors in place and they start working. So hopefully sooner rather than later.
Sorry.
Yes.
Thought you were done. So is it am I correct in saying it's a temporary fix for now and y'all are trying to get everything and get it fixed permanently?
Yes, we're working on a more permanent fix right now. The temporary fix is, I say temporary, we don't expect this line to have any problems until we can make the permanent fix. Council meets tonight at 6 o'clock. This will be one of the items we'll be talking about tonight, as you might imagine, and figuring out that permanent fix. We're going to be relying on a water contractor to help us out and kind of guide us through that process. I don't have a lot of specifics on what it will take. I've been to the site a couple of times in the last couple of days. I know what it looks like and where the pipe is, and can't imagine that they're going to make some recommendations to make it more sound and where it will be more stable. But we're calling it a temporary fix because we want to make it last for several years to come by making a more permanent fix, but we do not expect it to rupture again in the near term. And I want to say that when we do make this fix, the permanent fix, we don't anticipate an eruption in water at that time because we'll have our stores filled, we'll have water ready to be processed at the treatment plant, and we just don't anticipate that there will be any issues when we do make that change.
I saw this flyer out in the front office over there. So has conservation of water been an issue in this part of the county?
I'm not familiar with that flyer. We're always trying to
Every
be.
drop counts.
Yeah.
It's asking people to conserve water.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but we're always conservative, and we've never, you know, we've had to ask customers to help us out in the past, but we've never had something like this happen because, you know, we have water lines break within our system, which create big problems. But this is a 16-inch line that feeds our whole system. Without it, we get no water into the system at all. We have no ability to treat water. So that's why it rose to the level that it did. You know, if a water line breaks, of course it's an issue, and the pressure may drop, and we may have to boil water for a day or something, and we advise our citizens, but it certainly doesn't rise to the level of attention that something like this does when the whole system is at jeopardy. So,
How long was the feeder line busted before anyone noticed the side of it? Or do you know?
I'm not sure exactly.
About 2 hours.
City manager says probably 2 hours.
And,
So,
and that came to their attention from a pressure gauge, or how did it?
yeah, they can detect when the pressure drops at the treatment plant, and it's pretty evident when the main line that's feeding all the water has a problem, then we recognize it pretty quickly. And I was advised by the city manager as soon as she found out, and we set about notifying people. We activated the EMA's phone bank or phone tree at that time, where they call residents and advise them that we have a situation. We started advising as early as that phone call for people to conserve water. We also put it out on our website. We distributed it through other social media as well, and of course the news outlets were very helpful in helping us to get the information out.
Can you describe what it looks like at that site, the side of the break?
Yeah, there's a very steep bank leading down to the creek, and at the bottom of that bank is a pipe that had ruptured at a bell housing where the pipe joins together. And we can provide some pictures if y'all would be interested. I think the city manager has some, and even some video that was taken out there.
Thank you.
All right, thank y'all. Anybody else? We're good.
So you think in a matter of months that line that you're tying into?
Well, I would say once the contracts are let, you know, it's a